don't know how you personally interpret that verse.
Let me give you an example.
Contradicts what's the
I've understood. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, gentlemen. Sorry, I just want to Assalamu alaikum. How you doing? You alright? How you doing? You alright?
Yes, well, thank you.
Right?
Yes.
Me and my son Isa from Scotland. We watch you guys. It's amazing. No disrespect, I don't think I've seen much of yourself on YouTube, but yourself, brother. And I think it's an amazing thing that you guys are doing. At the same time, I don't think everyone comes set in their own mindset. I don't know if you can actually convince anyone otherwise.
Convincing is we leave that for God, doesn't
Absolutely, it?
But then sometimes giving oxygen to the opposite, a lot of vitriol is spewed here against
not in this
no, not in the soft-spoken group. But that was just an observation. But yeah, we're going to be heading back to Scotland. But seriously, genuinely, very, very impressed with what you're doing and your work. Keep it up.
Jazakallah.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
So So let's just take the definition of vegan. Yeah.
Definition of
vegan. Yeah, somebody who doesn't have dairy or meat. So let's just say that's the original definition. Over time, people start incorporating other things into it. They start maybe saying, look, you can eat meat, but you can eat meat on Tuesdays. Yeah. And then dairy, you can you have to make it, you have to really thin it out, and adding these extra rules. So if a person then makes this claim that, look, what I'm going to do, we're going to go back to the original. And the original is that you don't eat dairy, you don't eat meat. So I guess the same applies over here as well. The monotheistic teachings of every religion, which is believing in one God, not believing in a trinity, not believing in human beings for salvation solely, and other things as well. So this is what the Qur'an means by confirming what was done by every single prophet that came from the time of Adam all the way to the time of the Prophet Muhammad.
But it seems to me a lot of the concepts that are there in the Torah are not... the Quran uses words without importing the meaning of those words very often. So I think, it imports the word covenant, talks about the covenant that God made with Moses and his offspring. If you look at the Hebrew scriptures, right from the beginning, God's original intention was that he would be in fellowship, he would be in relationship with those that he had created. That was his original intention. But because of Adam's transgression, we were cut. There was that separation. So that God is constantly coming to his people in the Hebrew scriptures, so that when we come to the New Testament, the incarnation to me is not a surprise. It's part of that whole redemptive narrative, and that whole redemptive narrative seems to be missing in the Quran. So I think, to me, Islam is there's a consistency within it. So if your starting point is that Adam made a mistake, he erred, and he was forgiven according to the Quran, his sin. Therefore, the solution to that is...
Should we just stand over here? I don't think they'll be able to see. No, I mean here, so they can see you as well.
The solution to that is then for God to give guidance through prophets, obviously Muhammad then being the seal of those prophets. So I can see a consistency within that, if that's your starting point. But if your starting point is that actually Adam's sin was more serious than just a mistake or erring, that actually he fell from that original state, there was that separation. Therefore, there's a more drastic remedy that's needed, which is salvation, which is provided in God's Messiah, Jesus Christ, who reconciles us back to God. And you see, right at the end of the Bible, that original intention comes to fruition because God makes his dwelling place with man. That was the whole point, the tabernacle, that God shows his Shekinah glory there in the temple, in the tabernacle. So he's always wanting to dwell with man, but sin separates us. So just to analogy. So if you had a headache and you went to a doctor, he might say, oh, you've just got a headache, I'll give you a paracetamol, and that would be fine, that would cure it. But what if you had not behind the headache was a brain tumor? You need serious surgery. So to me, that's the difference. We both have a different diagnosis, and the Bible has a more serious diagnosis, a deeper diagnosis, and therefore needs a deeper remedy.
Well, I think
Thank you for letting me to
no
say
problem,
that.
no problem.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying
So
to.
feel free to share.
Yeah, that's what I was saying to Joe. I mean, I'm not here to convince anybody, and I'm not here to force my view on you.
No.
I genuinely believe that the veracity of my arguments will stand for themselves, sort of thing. So I'm glad we can do that. So the thing that I wanted to say, what you said presupposes the fact that the Old Testament that we have has been preserved somewhat, but the Qur'an makes the claim that the previous books have been changed. So therefore, anything that we're told in the Qur'an, that's what has been confirmed by God. Anything else has a question mark to it. So that's why I think our yardsticks are different. Whilst here, our yardstick is the Qur'an, and the claim that you made, your yardstick, is the Old Testament.
Yeah, that was the starting point. I think for me again, that raises a question, because it seems to me, I mean, you can correct me, the Quran says that Allah preserves His words, and I think in the Arabic that's plural. I'm not. That's my understanding. I don't know if that's
no problem.
Correct. So in which case, if He's preserved His words, then He surely has preserved the Torah and the Injil as well as the Quran, and therefore, if it's been corrupted, then how has He allowed it to be corrupted? When He says His words cannot be changed.
Yeah. So let's just say that God has said words. Yeah. Let's just say.
Yeah.
Then, what understanding are we taking from that? Yeah, we have to look at the rest of the Quran, and we have to look at the sayings of the Prophet. And the sayings of the Prophet and the rest of the Quran doesn't follow suit. Yeah, it doesn't say that the books have been preserved. The words, i.e. referring to revelation, because revelation didn't come all in one go. It came over a period of 23 years. So in other words, this falls in line with that whatever's being revealed has been preserved. And then the other point that you said, then why would God allow other books to be changed? Why would God allow evil to happen? Why would God allow corruption to happen? It's the same answer, which is it's a test.
Except if He said He would preserve His.
Yeah, but He didn't though. That's the claim I'm saying.
So
I'm saying He's referring to Revelation. Only the Quran.
Only the Quran.
Only the Quran.
Right. Sorry, but then you also said that the claim is that the Torah and the Injil have been changed. But again, when I read the Quran, it doesn't make that claim.
Yeah, the claim is clear. The previous books have been changed or corrupted. It's one of the claims the Quran makes.
But when I read it, what those verses that seem to suggest doesn't refer to the actual text itself. It refers to those that maybe have made up or invented scriptures for their own profit. Those that are. So it doesn't seem to refer to the changing of the actual text, but people that have given their own meanings or interpretations to us, or invented their own scriptures for profit, whatever it means. It doesn't seem to refer to the actual changing of the text. If you think about it logically, supposing there were some heretical Jewish or Christian groups around Arabia at that time, they may have changed one or two manuscripts. But what about all the manuscripts in Jerusalem, in other places? Sure, they haven't changed the whole of it. So you've still got those preserved Hebrew manuscripts with which to compare these corrupted ones that the Quran changes. Do you see? It doesn't hold up. It doesn't make sense, and I don't think it's what the Quran is saying either.
Let me see if I can bring it up.
Are you meaning the actual changing of the actual text itself?
Yeah, the text itself.
But does the Quran say that? I suppose that's my question.
Okay. So Surah 3 verse 78 says, and there is indeed a group among them who twist their tongues with the book.
Twist their tongues?
Yeah. With the book, that you may suppose it is to be from the book, but it is not from the book. And they say it is from God, though it is not from God. And they knowingly speak a lie against God. And then verse 46 says, among those...
That one clearly says with their tongues, which is what I said. It's people that are misinterpreting what has gone before. That doesn't, to me, doesn't talk about the changing of the actual text itself.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah. Is there another one?
Okay. Among those who are Jews are those who distort the meanings of the word and say, we hear and we obey. Hear as one who hears not, and attend to us, twisting their tongues and disparaging religion. And had they said, we hear and obey and listen and regard us, it would have been better for them and more proper. But God cursed them for their disbelief, so they believe not, save a few. And then a hadith goes, O community of Muslims, how is it that you seek wisdom from the people of the book? Your book, brought down upon his prophet, blessed and peace of God upon him, is the latest report about God. You read a book that has not been distorted, but the people of the book, as God related to you, exchanged that which God wrote, changing the book with their hands. That's pretty...
But the actual Quranic text talks about tongues, doesn't it?
Yeah, but
and changing meanings. That's not changing the text.
And
the second one was a hadith.
Yeah.
So how reliable is that hadith?
The hadith is Sahih Muslim. It's authentic. It's in fact, it's in the second most authentic.
But it's
the third most authentic in the Islamic tradition.
But any hadith doesn't have the same authority as the Qur'an itself.
If the hadith is mutawatir, it can be very close. But again, as Muslims, we don't say, oh, the Qur'an has said this, the hadith has said. We take the Qur'an and the hadith together.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, they complement each other. They're not kind of conflicting each other here. And the Qur'an isn't going to give immense amount of details. Yeah, that's the job of the Prophet. He's a walking, talking embodiment of the Qur'an. So we have the verse of the Qur'an, and the Prophet has given exegesis of this. So this is very clear. Yeah, that the Islamic stance is that the books have been changed. Now, when we, let's just say, pick up a book, we were to pick up maybe the King James Version, New International Version, and let's just say you go in Book of John, chapter 7, verse 53. It will tell you right at the footnote. I don't think anybody disputes this. It says this has been added in by the scribes. The last 10 verses.
What it says.
So if I just add one more on, then you can answer both. And then if you look at the last 10 verses of the book of Mark, ironically your name is Mark as well. Last 10 verses, that's been added on by the scribes as well. So, and at the bottom, somehow this seems acceptable. And this in fact confirms what the Qur'an is saying, that these people have added it on with their hands. And we know that Christianity is a bookish faith which relies on, well, early on it relied on scribes that, let's face it, were not professionals. And even when you look at Greek doesn't have punctuation in it. It's written, or it doesn't have spaces. So again, it's left open to interpretation. On top of that, Jesus spoke Aramaic. So you've got Aramaic, then you've got Greek, and then you've got these people who want to, copy it down, but scribal errors then creep in, parablepsis, homoeuteliton, all these different forms of copying errors. And then today we've also got King James Version, right at the beginning says this has major and minor errors in it. Then we look at John 7:53, it's got it at the bottom. So if we look at all of these things, it seems like it's pretty much confirming what the Qur'an's saying. And the Hadith.
A few points on there. Certainly on John 7, what it says is that this account is not found in the original documents.
The manuscripts.
In the original. In the earliest ones. Doesn't mean the story wasn't authentic. That's one point. and also the ending of Mark, we can say the same thing. But the Bible, here's the thing, the Bible is an honest book. If there are textual variants, it tells us where those variants are. So we would say that it's inspired by God as originally given. We don't ascribe the same inspiration to that which has been copied. We recognize that there are textual variants, but we've got so many existing manuscripts that we can be certain what the original was. That's the important thing. The Bible is the written word of God. Jesus is the living word of God. But the thing is, you have the same issues with the Qur'an. That's the thing. We ought to be having the similar conversations, because coming back to my point, as I've looked into it seems that right from the beginning there was contention about what constituted the Qur'an. So there was dispute amongst Muhammad's first followers, and so there were four of the best reciters of the Qur'an. Ubay ibn Ka'b said that he was convinced that there were chapters of the Qur'an that were missing. Ibn Masud said that there were only 111 chapters of the Qur'an, because the first chapter and the last two surahs were prayers to God, not direct speech of Allah. And he was very clear that he wanted to hold on to his Qur'an, so that there were disputes even amongst the followers of Muhammad who was to constitute it. Some of it was memorized, and those that memorized it were losing their lives in the battle, and there was one verse that was only remembered by one person, and yet you're supposed to have two witnesses. I forgot his name now. One of the caliphs, Uthman, was worried that there were differences emerging in the Qur'an, so he said, we can't have this, we'll be like the Jews and the Christians. Let's just have one Qur'an. And so all the variants were then burnt. So the best you could say is that Uthman's Qur'an has been preserved, but then you would need a Qur'an from the time, complete manuscript from the time of Uthman, with which to compare your modern manuscripts, which to me you haven't got. So this idea that the Qur'an is perfectly preserved just doesn't add up in reality, because you've got the Hafs, which 90% of Muslims read, and then the Wash, and there are differences not only in pronunciation but actually in the Arabic text between the Hafs and the Wash. So which is the one that's preserved in heaven? That will be my issue. So all I'm saying, if you say the Qur'an has been very well preserved, fine, no problem, but we recognize that yes, over the years there's been different versions and textual variations, no problem, we're on the same page. But because you make this claim of perfect preservation, it just doesn't stack up as people are looking into it.
Okay, very good. There's a few things that you mentioned. I was just keeping a track of all of them. There was like 5, 6 of them. I'm going to see if I can deal with them one at a time.
Yeah, so I think I started with
John. John chapter 5.
We started with the Bible.
So you said John chapter 7 verse 53. You said just because the earliest manuscripts that we have don't have it, it doesn't mean that the earlier ones didn't have it.
No, I said it doesn't mean it's not an authentic story.
Right, but there's no way of us being able to verify this, because there's no manuscript that will confirm this thing. Surely we rely on the earliest manuscript that we have, especially
it's in the majority texts.
So especially if it's a bookish religion, it needs to have a book-related preservation. Now the issue that you're conflating here is Islam doesn't claim to be a bookish religion. We believe, and we're able to prove, that our primary way of preservation is orally. That it was revealed and it was memorized, and that's how it was passed on. Again, I'm just juggling a lot of things. So if it's a bookish religion, then it does need to have a manuscript that then confirms its presence. Otherwise, it seems that the evidence points to the fact that those verses weren't there, especially if something's a bookish religion and relies upon books. And the other thing that you said was the same with Mark. But then this would also apply to the Qur'an, and it would also apply to Ibn Masud, the reply that you gave. But I mean, I can't remember There's just so many. Okay, then coming back to Abdullah bin Mas'ud, yeah, and Ubay bin Ka'b. Yeah, Ubay bin Ka'b and Abdullah bin Mas'ud, again, there being this disputes about chapters. Again, chapters at that moment in time doesn't mean that chapters are missing. It means that does this go in this chapter or does this go in that chapter? Are you combining two chapters or are you separating chapters? Because at the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him, the Prophet memorized it and passed it on. And at the time of the Prophet, the whole Qur'an not only was memorized by the Prophet, it was memorized by the companions. And even at the time of the Prophet, it was written down. Yeah, all of it was written down. And then at the time of Abu Bakr, the first caliph, it was then left, all of them were put together and they were left with the lady Hafsa, radiyallahu anha. And then Uthman radiyallahu an came, and thereafter the issue at the time of Uthman was